Welcome, everybody. It's another wonderful Monday night of Chewing the BBQ Fat. Guys, I'm so excited for what we have in store. It is going to be a heck of a night. Um, and not only tonight, but I've got a good slate coming up for the next couple weeks. We talked about doing a little bit of this, the round table type thing. I've had a lot of people are willing to come on the show and talk about it. So tonight we're going to be talking brisket, and I've got some of the best people in the world coming on tonight to talk brisket. Um, it's going to be. I'll introduce every one of them in a second. If you've seen the description, you know who's coming on tonight. Um, but man, I'll tell you what, it's been a heck of a night here at the Jarvis household, Atlanta Barbecue Store. I want to thank every one of y'all for praying for me, thinking about me. My mouth seems to be better. My face seems to be better here with the Bell's palsy. That was not fun. It was not good. But thank y'all for thinking about me, praying for me. Um, we're doing a lot better. I think I'm probably about 90%. But we are getting that better, rocking and rolling. Couple things I want to do. I want to talk about the reason we're doing these roundtables. The reason we're going to be talking about all this stuff is so you can go out and you can have the best cook you can possibly have at the next contest you do. I want you to go out and I want you to have the best cook you've had. I want you to go cook the best brisket you've ever cooked next weekend or tomorrow after tonight's discussion. I want next week, whatever we discuss next week, I want you to go out and practice and cook the best cook you can. I want to hear stories of y'all watching the Chewin the BBQ Fat coming back and seeing you win and being successful on the barbecue trail. Real quick, a couple contests that are coming up. I'm going to be cooking Young Harris barbecue throwdown. That is first week in February. I think February 5th and 6th, something along those lines. It's going to be a great time up in the mountains of North Georgia. I believe it's full. Go ahead and get your name on that waiting list. It's going to be a great time. Some other contests that are coming up that I know are doing well. Sip and Swine. It is almost full. It's one of the premier contests in Georgia, one of the best contests in the Southeast. If you haven't signed up for it, talk to Jim Lloyd this weekend. He said they're filling up fast. They're going to limit the teams this year. So go ahead, sign up, Sip and Swine. It's a great contest. A couple others. We got Smoke of the Falls in Gadsden, Alabama. It's coming up in April. It's going to be a good one. Janet will be on in a little bit. She can post her comments on how to sign up for it. Another wonderful contest. My buddy Jason Cole has Smoke on the Shores in Tennessee. That's an awesome one. I do believe Paul Kellner told me that it is almost full. So if you haven't signed up for it, jump on board and go for it. And then another one coming up. It's a little ways out. It's in end of April, beginning of May. Brookhaven Hog Wild Contest, I believe is the name of it. It is going to be great. I know they are doing a lot of work trying to get the word out, trying to get the name out on this contest. It's going to be a good contest. My buddy Wes Garrett, he is. I'm pretty sure he'll be there. Maybe Adam Goutreau, he'll probably be showing up. Who knows? We'll find out in a little bit. But there are some great contests that are happening. Yeah, there's some that are falling out. There's some that are going away. But there's still contests that are going on, rocking and rolling. And tonight we are going to discuss brisket. We are going to discuss from the best of the best of how do you go about cooking the best competition brisket you could talk of. Paul, what did I say was almost full? Sip and Swine is almost full. Smoke on the Shores is almost full. Young Harris, the barbecue throwdown is full. Smoke on the Falls is getting there. And we can talk about some more. Some more. Don't forget. I cannot forget, Jason. How could I forget about the Rufus Teague Barbecue Throwdown series coming up? If you haven't looked into the Rufus Teague, jump on board. It's a great series that Jason and his buddies have got going. Man, I tell you what, it's going to be a great time. Mark Porter, how you doing tonight? Hope you're doing well. Hog Wild is here to stay. Heck yeah, great contest. Maybe I can make it out there to that contest and have a good time. But guys, join up. What's up, Travis Baker from Australia? How you doing? Hope you have a good night. That's awesome. Or a good day. I want y'all to listen tonight, and I want y'all to ask questions because I want this to be a comment-driven discussion with these guys. I mean, I've got Adam Goutreau, Cajun Blaze. The guy, he told me he doesn't hardly cook KCBS contests, but he cooks all the time. He just won brisket this weekend. We've got the reigning KCBS Brisket Team of the Year, the one and only Paul Keltner's with Rooters and Tooters. And then we got Donnie Bray, Warren County Pork Choppers. Is there anything else to say about him and brisket? I mean, he knows brisket like nobody else. You are going to hear from the best of the best. So let's get started tonight. Please, please, please bring in some questions to me, and we'll get rocking and rolling. So I'm going to bring on Adam first. Adam, how you doing?
All right, man. What's going on?
Oh, just ready for tonight. It's going to be a great show.
Yeah.
Give everybody a quick introduction about yourself and who you are.
Adam Goutreau, Cajun Blaze Barbecue, Gonzales, Louisiana.
Whoo! Paul Keltner.
Hey, excited to get this series started with you.
Yeah, man. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Paul Keltner with Rooters and Tooters Barbecue in Mount Pleasant, Tennessee.
Woo! And Donnie Bray. How you doing, Donnie? Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Donnie Bray, Warren County Pork Choppers, Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Bowling Green, Kentucky, guys. So I've got everything covered. We got Louisiana, we got Tennessee, we got Kentucky covered. That's not everywhere, but that's a good sample of brisket, of competition barbecue all over. Adam, I know you cook every sanctioned body there is to be cooked. Paul, you are KCBS, and Donnie, you're Donnie Bray. You're the man. There's nothing else to really say about you, right? So let's get started, and we're going to go to the basics of what kind of brisket are you cooking, and what kind of brisket, and why are you cooking it? So, Adam, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to let you get started.
Okay, so this past weekend I cooked Snake River Farms Black. It was about 24 pounds, pretty big one.
Holy.
Yeah. Last couple contests, contest before that, I cooked a prime. Had a beautiful prime in the freezer. It was a smaller contest. The last few before that, I cooked Snake River, and then for a while I was cooking some A9s. Right after I went to the Smithfield, they gave us some of those to cook in the contest, and I got hooked on those for a while. So I pretty much spread the love all the way around. You know, I go buy some A9s, buy some Snake Rivers, and then I got a buddy of mine he sells some Wagyu Imperials at his shop, so I buy from him sometime. So pretty much, as long as it's highly marbled, I'm happy.
Awesome. Paul?
Yeah, we're primarily Snake River Farms, and we've cooked some A9s this past year, but for the most part, over the last couple of years, it's mostly been Snake River Farms. It's just what I know that meat. The A9s are just a little bit different, but to me, I still cook them the same, and it's still about that feel. So I think you can go either way on those, but yeah, I'll try to stick with Snake Rivers.
Okay. Donnie, go ahead.
I'm Snake River all the way. I guess I'm bigger's better in my world. I get the biggest gold I can get. You know, I've done very well with the smaller ones, but for some reason when I buy them, if it come in 50 pounds, I'd love it. You know, so I don't know. You just get sort of stuck in a rut thinking you can buy your way out of a problem. So that's what I do, and I just always have done it. I've tried some of the other ones, and because the meat was just a little bit different cut, and I have a certain way that I like to trim and start to trim, and it's a pattern. So my pattern works with Snake River, and I just stay there.
Okay, so Adam, you cooked a 24-pounder. Donnie, you like the big ones too. What is it about the bigger briskets because let me remember. All of y'all like the bigger briskets. Are y'all trimming them down to a smaller, manageable size? Or are you cooking that flat as big as possible? Or are you trimming it down?
I personally want to keep
I couldn't hear you. You broke up on me.
Okay. Go ahead, Donnie.
I personally want to keep as much to go into smoker as I can. and to have as much real estate on that brisket that I can pick from for my turn in. But also, if it don't make it through the cut there in the trim, I just got more to deal with. But typically, I only want to, when I leave my practice kitchen, I only want what I feel is 100% the best, or just cull it and feed it to the neighbor and get another one out of the freezer.
Okay. So Adam, I asked, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I asked if you're cooking that big 24 pounder, are you trimming it down or are you leaving it as big as possible?
Oh, I'm definitely trimming. I don't specifically require a brisket that big. That's just the only one I could get my hands on for the weekend. I usually get about a 16 to 18 pound. And I'm definitely trimming it down. I'm not even bringing the point with me. I don't really do the burn ins, and trimming it down to about 9 pounds.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, I like the 20 plus pounders, and I will trim them down. I basically go by size, so I don't want the width of it to be any more than 9 inches, and I try not to go below 7 inches, and the length of it, I try to keep it around 11 inches in length, and I just do that every contest, and so it just kind of helps me with how it cooks. So I'm not up and down in sizes and weights that much.
Okay. Guys, feel free to ask each other questions also. I don't want to be like where I'm asking all the questions. Y'all can talk to each other. Separate or not separate?
Yeah, I separate. I've been separating ever since I can remember.
Okay.
I pretty much cut the point off at the top of the brisket, but as far as underneath goes, I'm just using my knife to level it out. I want to leave the point meat underneath the fat line as much as I can, but I don't really, need all the extra underneath, so I just kind of level it out. But I do not separate the point from the flat.
Okay. Donnie?
Yes, I separate. I don't know, years ago, I just couldn't, I hated sticking my hand in a, 200-degree brisket to separate at the point when, we was turning in burn ends all the time. So I started separating early in the game, and it's definitely something that I'm hooked on.
So,
Okay,
so
good.
Adam, are you doing that, cooking those more direct? Is that why you're leaving all that fat on there?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, if I do go to a contest, KCBS, and decide that I am going to turn in burn-ins, I do separate it. But I mean, I just like to leave the brisket as whole as I can, and then after I slice, then I'll trim off the bottom part, below the fat line, off of there. But I just always done it. I never had to turn in burn-ins, only primarily cooking IBCA, BCA, so I just left it.
Real quick, before we get any farther, Travis Baker had a great question for y'all. What do you cook on? What kind of smoker are you cooking on?
I cook on an Old Hickory Ace BP. It's a hell of a brisket cooker.
It's hard to beat those old hickories. I cook on a Southern Q water smoker.
I'm a Old Hickory M&M.
Oh, 2 old hickory guys.
Yeah, Donnie talked about that on his last show that you've had that Old Hickory for a long time and you're excited to get it back out. So for people that aren't exactly sure what an Old Hickory is, or Paul, what a water cooker is, real quick, and we'll get going. Can you talk a little bit about what the Old Hickory does and how it differentiates from, say, a Jambo or anything else? And then Wes Garrett's also asking temperatures that you're cooking at.
And who was that directed toward? The
The 2 Old Hickory guys. You go for it, Donnie. You tell me a little bit about an Old Hickory.
It's one of those that's going to give me a long burn. I like to sleep a little bit, so it's to me it's sort of like having. I'm definitely a guru person. I really like using those. These just happen to have them built into them. I like the fan. The fan's probably the biggest thing it makes it more like a confection. So that's something you do have to get used to, because you know at 250 in one of those is maybe like 275 to 290 and something else with the fan on wide open. You know, it's another adjustment, but it's one of those that pick a speed and stick with it, I guess is the best thing to say. But I believe that the burn time, it having the built-in, we'll call it fan assist for the fire, and then having the convection fan is what breaks it apart from the others.
Okay.
Yeah, no doubt. The convection fan is one of the things that turned me on to it. And the consistency on every shelf. And I do cook my briskets at 250, but just like Donnie said, with the fan and the airflow, it's probably comparable to a 275 heat. And I'm cooking on the top shelf, which is, you know, probably more intense heat coming off of the top of that smoker. And I will note that I was not a brisket cook until I bought that old hickory. That old hickory turned me into a brisket cook.
Nice. Yeah. So that answers smoking sweetmeats question of what shelf are you cooking on the old hickory? I know he's a old hickory cook. So thank you for asking that or answering that. Paul, real quick on a water cooker.
Yes, my water cooker is almost, if you can imagine, it's more of a vertical offset. So on the bottom of it, I've got a firebox. You start it with charcoal, then you're feeding it wood sticks just like you would an offset smoker. In between that and the fire chamber, in the cooking chamber itself, I've got a 13-gallon water pan that sits in there. And it's got a really large draft at the bottom. It's got 2 draft pipes coming out the top. And I cook my briskets around between 325 and 350.
Nice. All right, guys, like and share the page. Get this out there for people to watch. Share it. Get everybody out there watching. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Okay, enough of that. All right, so back to brisket. Back to what we're here for. Do you cook in a pan? Paul, do you cook in pans?
I do not. I cook on the grate.
Okay. Adam?
I cook the grate as well.
All right. Donnie?
On the grate.
Okay, good. So there you go, guys. So you're out there, and are you doing that to try and set the bark, or is there it's just the way you've always done it?
I just like the way the heat flows across the meat that way, versus it sitting in a pan where it's kind of skipping over the outside edge and kind of scraping across the top a little bit more. But I like it to come around the edges and set those up good for me, and you're getting full flavor. So I mean, with competition barbecue, it's not like we're letting it sit on the smoker for 10, 12 hours like you might see in some places. So you have limited time where that meat's exposed to smoke and moisture, and so you're trying to capitalize on that as much as you can.
That's good. Guys, if you have any questions you want me to ask, now's the time to ask, because before I get into some more of these other questions I want y'all to have an opportunity to please ask the questions. Paul, if any of y'all are wanting to watch the comments, or let's say you have Lynn there, y'all can monitor some of these other questions also. Let's get into, so we've talked a little bit about trim. Y'all are all pretty aggressive on your trims, and you separate. Nobody turns in, well, I think, who turns in burn ends, or who cooks burn ends? I know Adam,
really big contest, I'll do it like the jack or something big. I'll do it. I don't know why, but I just do.
I cook them every time.
You cook them, Donnie?
I cook them every time, but and I think every time I cook a burn in, I think it's the greatest thing I ever put in my mouth. But as time has changed with it, turned them in. They just have to be over the top. And throughout the years of the sauce and no sauce and all the different things that went into burn ends, and I just felt like for a time that the judges sort of changed their. I come up with a technique years ago on burn ends where I would put them in a pan and filling it up with my broth that all the way almost to the top, and always worrying about to make sure it was exactly to the top so that the side colors would be the same. and get them where they just, they just melt in your mouth. And at the time when, at that time, the way the burn end was, and a couple of other little techniques with the burn end, I just felt like I top five called brisket every time. And I felt like, and this was years ago, I'm a has been, but I just felt like the burn ends brought me through it. It'd be like, in some of the TV shows that I failed at, I'd get comments about the burn ends melt in your mouth. And it was a thing that all of a sudden I felt like after a while, when whatever clicked in the judges and the pattern that they got on, I don't believe it had been the best burn in ever. I'd have confidence to turn it in, but for a while it was, and now I can't get myself out of that routine to cook them, but turn them in would be rare.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I'm cooking them, but they're mostly just for snacks for me later in the week, for lunch or something. I'm kind of a little bit like Adam. If it's a big contest, I may be more serious about cooking them and trying to get them to the point of turning them in. But even then, it's got to be unbelievably great to pass Lynn's taste there. So which is hard to please her with a burn in, and so most times they just don't make it.
Right. All right. So I'm going to jump around here. I had an idea, but we're just going to go with it. I've got some good questions going. Donnie, you talked about sauce, and Kevin has asked about sauce also. So is brisket? Do you sauce or do you not sauce a brisket?
I don't sauce a brisket.
Anybody up? Paul?
Gosh, man, you're going to make me admit this. I do sauce.
Adam?
Oh yeah, I put a light coat of sauce on the top of it and set it for about 20 minutes.
It hurts me. I can promise you that. It hurts me to sauce it.
It doesn't hurt me at all, man. Whatever wins.
It really hurts my feelings to sauce that thing, but it does seem to be, it does score a little better here lately with a little sauce on it.
And when you say sauce, so Adam, you're saying when you're cooking your brisket, it's done. You're slicing you're saucing the top of the brisket and then putting it back on and setting it, or
Yes,
are you? Okay.
After the rest period, it goes back on to set some sauce on it before slicing.
Okay. Is that the same for you, Paul? Or are you saucing the slices?
I'm doing just like Adam.
Okay. All right. And Donnie, why?
I knew I was doing something right. If I was doing something like Adam, I knew I was doing something right.
So what is your thoughts of not saucing, Donnie?
I love the sauce on it. I'm not saying that. I just, you get set in your ways where, how many times you talk to a judge and they'll say something and next thing you know, you'll change your whole game. I believe it's best at a competition just to put earplugs in, don't listen to nobody. But, maybe some judge or something told me sometime, oh, I got a piece of brisket and they had sauce on it. I don't know. And then, I just stuck with a pattern. I used the far out of my auger or whatever the right word for that would be, so as far as barbecue sauce, no, but I do put, I'm soaking them, the slices, so I'm getting as much in them as I possibly can. Most of our barbecue sauces have a sweet side, so I'm trying to cram everything I can without being sweet. Not saying saucing's wrong. I love it. I just got it in my head that, I shouldn't go that way a long time ago, and that's just the way I went.
That's awesome. That seems to be the $64,000 question. Do you sauce or not sauce? Why do you sauce? Everything else. I like it. Adam, I think you hit the nail on the head. You sauce because it wins. For you, right? Awesome. Okay, next question. Wrapping. Do you wrap in foil? Do you wrap in aluminum foil? Paper, or are you putting them in a pan when you wrap?
So I am pulling 2 long sheets of foil, putting those foil in my pan, setting the brisket in the foil, and then double wrapping the brisket as tight as I can in the pan because I don't want to lose any juice in the smoker by sliding on the grates. So the pan's my insurance.
So you're basically wrapping in foil and then just using the pan as a carrier
That's it.
type. Okay. Paul?
I just put it in a pan and put a foil across the top of it.
Donnie?
I'm straight up full and no pan. The pan is a great idea, and ain't how many I've broke open like that. But I do a full where I take 2 sheets, double it, then take 2 more sheets, double it, and then put a sheet in the bottom. So I got about 3 layers in the bottom, and the pan would work fine. It's just like, you know, you get a timeline and something I'm afraid to even move of things around in the smoker. So, but the pan is a great idea to keep from tearing it. I'm tight wrapped as Adam mentioned, just as tight as you can get it. But I'm straight up full. Well, but
All right. Now the next question that nobody's going to want to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and y'all can just talk amongst yourselves. What kind of wrap are you putting any liquid in your wrap? And if you are, what is it? No, I'm not asking you what it is. What type of liquid are you putting in? Y'all can figure it out yourselves, people watching. But what kind of liquid?
1 can of beef broth.
One can of beef broth is all you do.
Beef broth.
All right. Is there a reason? Well, let me back up. What are you hoping that wrap is going to do for you?
I don't know. That's just what I've always done. Poured a can of beef broth in there, man. That's it.
Okay. Donnie, what you think?
I got a mop that's pretty extensive, and my mop puts a different flavor into the meat. It's something I can't use like my burnt ends. I put just straight up beef broth in that. But I got a mop that's got everything beef broth. It's got some smoking guns hot in it. It's got some olive oil in it. It's got some celery seed in it. Things like that. It makes it pretty tangy to where I just use that. I had to cut that a little bit. I can't even soak my slices in it, so it's too powerful. But in just the meat, it gives it a flavor that makes the brisket sort of carry itself, if that makes sense. But if you soak it in it or try to put it in there with turn it might be too powerful. But it's got quite a few things in it.
Sounds awesome, Paul.
Yeah, I'm the same way on that. Is that so? I'll put a liquid in there, and it's just an enhancer. So it's for that finished product to add some flavor in there and to mix in with the natural beef juices there at the end, just like Donnie.
I completely missed what you said. You wrapped it. What that juice was?
It was an enhancer.
Enhancer. Okay. All right.
I may have to use that word later. Enhance.
All right. Paul's shutting down on us. I like that. So real quick, going back to the sauce, I had somebody ask what sauce. I'm not going to go that direct in what kind of sauce, but are you trying to think when you do sauce brisket, are you going to more of a sweeter sauce, more of a peppery sauce, or using the best sauce there is, a fine swine, for that, or what?
Just barbecue sauce.
Oh,
Barbecue sauce.
okay. Not a good answer. Paul, you're about to give a better answer. What do you think?
It's not extremely sweet, and it's a bit savory. So I mean, it has some sweet to it, but not too sweet at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I think anybody who's saucing brisket, as Donnie kind of alluded to, as far as the sweetness, I don't think you can go with a real sweet sauce. My sauce is a little bit of balance. It's got a little acid in it, and it's got a little sweetness in it that balances it all out to where it's neither one of them's overpowering each other. But you can get really sweet real quick with today's sauces, so you're more likely going to be mixing your own to try to accent the beef, not make it stand, not the sauce stand out, so to speak.
That's right.
Paul, don't worry. I am trying my hardest to find out where I can find this enhancer that he has. Paul Bob, not you, Paul Kellner. We're looking for this enhancer to have on the Atlanta barbecue store one of these days. So y'all, I'm
We'll
gonna keep
ball it
looking
up.
out.
You can sell it.
Sweet baby Rays, I love it. Kraft, get some of that. All right, injection. Donnie, is there anything else you wanted to add to that? Are we good?
The sauce that I used on burn ends was, and I'm a tell all type guy, but I found that trying to do burn ends, I did the Blues Hog and some Tennessee Red and thinned it down. And then when I put it on burn ends and set them, they'd tack up to where you really couldn't tell that it had anything in. But what you carried was sweet heat. And then I hit them on top with some ground up smoking guns hot for the salt. So I had sweet heat, salt, and smoke. And I think that was a winning combination back in the day for a burn in. But, it was almost like you didn't have salt or didn't have sauce. You couldn't see
Right.
it, but you could taste something.
All right, so I'm going to get into rubs. You brought up smoking guns hot. Rubs. When are you rubbing? Are you putting it on the night before? Are you putting it on an hour before? What time frame are you putting on? And don't tell me the rub you're using unless you just want to. But what type of rub are you using, and what are you looking for out of that rub? Paul, I'm going to ask you to start.
Is that me?
No, I'm going to go with Paul first.
I actually rub mine about an hour before. The reason why I do that is you can do it the other way, but for me, throughout the night, some of my liquid, some of my injection does kind of seep out. And so I found getting up in the morning after you've done it all night, for me, it was a little bit softer than I like. So I just do it about an hour before putting it on the cooker there. My rubs they're not real sweet. They're mostly savory, and there's always some sort of salt and pepper component to them that I think is important in your au jus. I think all that bleeds off into the au jus, and so whatever rub you're putting in there, you're actually going to be putting some flavor in that au jus on top of that.
Man, Paul he's gotten tight-lipped on us tonight. I love it. Adam, what you got?
So I usually rub my brisket about 8 or 9 p.m. Cover it with foil in a pan, put it in the refrigerator overnight. And I use 4 different rubs in 5 layers. One goes on first and last. One of them's basically a salt, pepper, garlic rub. One of them's a citrus rub. And the other 3 are just magic dust.
Magic dust.
Magic dust.
Donnie, I'm so glad I have you on tonight because you're the one that's giving us all this good information. You're helping out our viewers to learn how they can go out and be the best brisket cook they can. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say, Donnie.
Well, I'm a little different. Barbecue competitions has always been a camaraderie for me. So this may sound weird, but this is the way I always done my meats. But 3 o'clock in the afternoon is when big meats I would season them. So I'd inject and season, and I put them in a plastic bag so I don't lose anything, tied up tight. And then when I get ready to put them on, it's sort of like vacuum sealing, but not pulling it into the meat. They just have to set in. Everything that I put into them, I keep it to where the brisket can't get away from it until I open it up. And that, as far as that's, again, you get to doing something, and if it works, you just don't change. And not to say that's right or wrong, because the time frame that I put it on, the time frame that I season it, all of that, if I changed one of those, I could have changed the outcome of the brisket. But I start off with because of it being beef, I really start off, my first seasoning that goes on there is no more than garlic powder, and then I go garlic, salt. I use a double OBQ, which is
Garlic.
yeah,
Garlic.
I use that, and I use the other OBQ brisket rub, and I always finish it off with a little bit of smoking guns hot because it can't hurt. So, and then if you got a smoker that doesn't produce smoke ring the way you want it, you could always start that off with a little baking soda prior to anything and enhance that smoke ring.
Thank you, Donnie. I knew you would come through for me and help out our viewers tonight.
My life's an open book. It doesn't matter.
I know. I love it. I love it about you, Donnie. You know, that's why I was so glad when you were willing to come on. I said, I knew we were going to have a great show. And then I bring in Paul thinking, hey, you know, the brisket king, and he's got an all tight lipped on me. And then Adam, he's been giving a lot of good information. We got some Cajun dust that we got to find, and we got an enhancer that we have to find. I don't know about any of these things, but we're going to make it work, Donnie. I think we can make this happen.
I got a pencil and paper if they talk right here. Look.
Awesome. All right. So injections, y'all mentioned injections, and it's shame on me for not bringing that up. Y'all all are injecting, obviously. Do you think it matters if you inject, how long that injection stays in the meat, or is that just something, Donnie, that you've always done it that way and you're going to continue doing it that way?
I just always have. And you know, right when you get on something that's working, it's hard to change. You know, I'm sure everybody's experienced it. You know, you get on a good roll and everything's working good, and you change just something, and next thing you know, you're off in left field. And I know I've done that several times. So I get superstitious, all kinds of different things about changing because I'm afraid I'll get lost. So when it's working, I don't fix it. I just keep on pedaling.
Nice. Good. So when do you inject? You inject, you said at 3:00, right?
Yeah.
Paul, what's your injection process?
Yeah,
Adam,
for me, so I'll make it up actually at the contest. I don't pre-make that injection. I am one of the guys that believe in the sodium phosphate, and the pH level does change if you hold it in there throughout the week. I'll make it up. It sits there just for a little bit as my brisket come up to temp a little bit. I do like a little bit warmer brisket, as you may have heard this past weekend. I'm the same way. I do like mine to sit on the countertop just for a little bit before I actually inject it. And I try to do that somewhere around 1 or 2 o'clock, but we've done it, 5 or 6 o'clock at night and still did okay the next day. So I think it's like Donnie says, I'm kind of superstitious. I like to have it in that 1 to 2 o'clock range. After that, I start getting a little antsy and nervous about it, but sometimes I think it's just in our head.
Adam?
I inject about 5 or 6 p.m. and just let it basically sit in the refrigerator after it's injected for a few hours. And then, like 3 hours later, I'm coming back, wiping it all down, drying it off, and then applying rub 3 hours later.
So you apply your rub 3 hours later?
Yeah. Whether I inject at 5 or 6, I'll be rubbing at 8 or 9.
Nice. At what point in time do y'all add the boudin into the process? Are y'all sampling the boudin?
That's
Are
for
you
breakfast.
eating Ronnie's boudin?
That's for breakfast.
That's for breakfast, Brad. Brad, that is the galoshes are breakfast for everybody, and they're delicious. Ronnie's boudin, if you haven't had it, you need to get online right now. Go order some and get it, or call Brad, get it. It's delicious. What's up, Brad? Brad's watching. All right, Adam, I'm going to let you ask the next question. I'm going to put you on the spot, and you can ask Paul, Donnie. The next question is yours.
Me?
Yeah.
All right. I was just fixing to ask Paul a question when he made a statement a while ago. But first, I wanted to ask y'all about earlier. I wanted to ask, what do you find the main difference in gold grade briskets are versus a black? Because I've never had problems with black. Some of the golds I've seen, just like they look too marbled to me. I've never cooked one.
I personally think that the gold is not a lot of different than the black. It's back to that deal where I'm trying to buy myself out of the hole, and hoping, it's like betting on playing a lottery. You're just hoping to get that best brisket. But I agree with you. I think the black is just fine, and most of the time I don't see any difference. It just costing me more. I'm just hoping I might someday get one like Travis Clark would get or something.
Yeah, I've always wanted to buy a gold, but the blacks treat me so well that I never jumped up to it and bought one. But I'm wondering if I'm missing out on anything else.
I don't think you are. I think you know, you'd have to buy, you know, multiples probably to see that you got something that, you know, you're used to cooking what you got, but I don't know. It doesn't jump out at you. It just, I just always hope that it would be better.
Got you.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think if you're used to cooking the black grade, then you're better sticking with it. For me, I'm trying to get that the best I can. There is more fat in it, but I've had some that I thought, I don't know who graded this one. It definitely looks more like a black than a gold, but you get those in the mix. But to me, the on the inside of it, the gold can get softer on you a little quicker and get a little accordion like a little faster than the blacks because of the amount of fat that's in the gold versus the black. I think it's easier to get the burn ins from a black though than you are the gold. The gold is just so much fat in those points. Yeah. It just, even when you render it down, you still got massive amount of clear fat in them.
I'm gonna expand on this comment for you, Adam, and I'm gonna go with Paul because I think Paul has cooked more of the A9s, or as Chris Schaefer said, Paul gets the A12s where everybody else is getting an A9. But can you expand on what is that A12? What's the difference in an A9 and say a Snake River's Gold, Paul?
It's just a different grading. You know, the A9 is more traditional Wagyu grading versus Snake River kind of has their own grading system, far as the black and the gold there. I mean, if I could cook as many brisket that Chris Schaefer cooks, then I wouldn't have too big of a problem. I mean, you cook 3 or 4 briskets every contest.
I mean, you know, there's only certain people that can do that, and Chris being one of them. You know, I mean, that's the way it works. Blaine Hunter asked what a burn-in was earlier, and you know, world champion like himself, he should know what a burn-in is, I guess. But anyway, all right. So, Donnie, I'm going to let you ask the next question.
All right, here's a good one. Y'all aging Snake River Farms brisket?
Good, great question. Are you aging your Snake River Farms?
I don't know if I'd call it aging, but but I do put it in the. It doesn't bother me to put it in the freezer. Actually, I prefer to go ahead and put it in the freezer just from just knowing that it's ready to cut when I want to have time to prep it. But that's only like 2 weeks or so ahead of time from the contest.
And real quick, to back up, will you explain what you mean by what aging a brisket is? I'm sorry for anybody that doesn't know. Paul or Donnie. Donnie, you go ahead and explain. This is your question.
Donnie asked the question. Yeah.
You know that usually what that came from is before everybody was buying these high dollar briskets, we'd do prime, and we would find out the pack date or the kill date, and that just happens to be the same date. The pack date and the kill date most of the time is the same, and then we would go out. So if you went and bought briskets, you would, that's on the case. If you didn't buy the whole case, you would do that, mark them, take them out, you know, 30 days, 35 days. Used to be you'd take them out till you air bubbled, get about the size of a quarter inside the plastic pack, and you know, primes are great aged, and that's wet aged, not dry aged, not to be mistaken of the two. So that's what we mean.
Okay. All right. Now I answer the question, Paul.
I thought I answered the question.
Okay, Adam, your turn.
I missed the question. It was breaking up, so I'm guessing he asked, "Did we age the brisket?"
Yeah. Do you age your briskets?
No, I mean, Snake Rivers come in frozen. They go straight into the freezer. The A9s, I'm usually getting, if I get those, just ready to take to a contest. But I find I have better luck cooking a brisket that has been frozen already. Like I like to freeze them just all the time. You know, I want to cook a frozen brisket. I don't know why. Maybe it's a coincidence. I don't know. I want one out the freezer. Well, I do age them because I had a couple bad experiences with that. It wasn't too. I learned my lesson. I stay away from that.
That's something that Snake River Farms is, I think, 21 days aged. So I took them out 40 days after I got them, thawed them out, not to refreeze them again, but took them out 40 days, and it turned out pretty nice. That's an experiment, something that you could play with. If you're ever wondering how far you can go, 40 is wonderful.
Okay.
Now, that's
You know, it's it.
that's
Go
in
ahead.
a dark place. That's in a dark refrigerator that you don't use. That's very cold, and that brisket they come around really, really quick with a lower temperature. Just something you can play with. Little information if you wanted to ever try. But I've had success with that.
Man,
So you know
you know
that.
it's. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I'm just saying, just kind of adding that, you know, that the goal of that wet aging is get that bacteria working in that meat and getting it tenderizing the meat before you ever cook it. And so that's the danger side of it is how far can you go with it? So
40 works good. So if you go further, tell me.
that's a long time.
You know what? That's interesting. That's a great question, Donnie, because I feel like people were always talking aging the brisket, aging the brisket. How far can you go? How far can you go? And maybe it's just a different. I don't know. I haven't heard people talking about aging their briskets in a long time. That's a great. You know, we might have just opened up something here to make changes for everybody in the brisket world. So, um, man,
Well, you know,
this is awesome.
if you're doing primes and you're buying them fresh where they hadn't been frozen, you know, you take them out whatever you want, you know, 30, 35, 40 days, and put the date on them. And, you know, you could do 2 or 3 cases, and then you got your date, and you know how long they've been out, and you're really only thawing them one time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that that's a prime brisket thing from back in the day. It's probably
Yeah.
not as necessary anymore with the Wagyu briskets, you know.
Right.
What temperature, Donnie, are you keeping your refrigerator at when you age them? Jason Harding will say, "What is the temperature of the fridge when you age?"
You know, I'm just as close to 32 as I could get. You know, they're 34, 35 degrees.
There you go. We had 2 people ask that same question. All right, so there you go. You make sure that refrigerator is at the right temperature. All right,
Not
so
saying
some more.
Snake River Farms needs it. I'm just saying that, you know, it's just information to play with if you want to.
Okay,
They say they don't need it. I've cooked them a bunch without it, but it adds a little something.
nice. Yeah, Bill Purvis says just trim the funk off of it and let it roll. I love that, Bill.
Just
All
like
right,
cheese.
all right, Paul, your turn.
I would say if I had to think of one off the hip here to these 2 guys would be outside of feel of brisket. Are there any visual clues that you can take looking at your brisket to see when you think it's getting close to being time that it's done?
Visual clues that I look for in a brisket, not as far as doneness, but when it's time to wrap is when the fat start leaking out of it. You know, I want to stop it right there and wrap it up. But as far as being done, it's wrapped up. I can't see what's going on in there besides probing it, you know.
Me, you know, I still do my same old trick that it works for me. I look for the wet. I try to keep the top of the brisket level, and then as I open it, you know, I know pretty much where I start looking at it way after the stall, and timing. I start looking for you know, let's just say if that was hypothetically iron 45 minutes or whatever it was. Then when I open it up, if I'm seeing the top of that brisket wet, then, and I do feel resistance. I feel as long as I can see moisture, I can still push a little bit further as that brisket's pushing that moisture up, and it's coming around and it's loosening up. So if I was checking a brisket and I still felt a little bit of resistance, but I seen places in my turn in that the moisture was going away because I do wrap tight, then I'd know I couldn't go any further. So I use the moisture like myself, and this is just my opinion. I use it like a thermometer on a butterball turkey. You know, when I see that starting to go away, I know I can't get any more out of that brisket. What it is, and that's only an opinion. I'm talking to good
Yeah.
cooks here, so I just say only opinion.
Well,
Yeah,
that's something that I learned in Donnie's first class. I was lucky enough to be in there, and that was one of the things I picked up on was that little tip right there, and I still use it today.
So Donnie, what you're saying is you open it up, you're looking into the wrap, and as long as there's moisture coming out of that brisket, you can still roll with it. You can still push it.
If I push the thermopin in it, at this point in time, the number means nothing to me unless it starts to fall. That's another thing that would go along with the moisture. If you're losing temperature and you're losing moisture at the top, you're going the wrong way. So if I open it up and I see that moisture and I have no resistance, I'd probably just do a cartwheel out the back of the trailer. You'd say that's perfect. But I'll let it tell me. It gives me confidence of where I can start or where I can stop it. Or if I went too far, if I need to just go ahead and throw a fit, that I went too far. It's always been a telltale for me of how that brisket, what it was telling me what was going on inside of it. But if you got dips in your brisket or if it's unlevel or it's got a crown, it doesn't work as well. You can still see moisture. Any of us, though, these are great cooks here. You see a brisket and you open it, it's dry on top, and you do a wrap in full, then you pretty much know that, it might not be, it might be the same way in the same inside.
You better get ready to soak it, was what he's trying to say.
Exactly.
You got to pull a rabbit out of your hat.
That's awesome, Adam. You look like you're soaking all this in. What you thinking about with all this?
Well, I'm a little different. I solely rely on my feel through the foil, and I feel that once I open that brisket wrap up to do my final check, if it's not where I want, I'm not going to trust any more numbers after that. And then your temperature falls and rises. I just try not to ever open that wrap up until I feel that it's perfect. And then when I get it off of the smoker, I will open it up and do my final probe to watch the resistance of the meat. And if it's not where I want it, I feel like, man, maybe next time, you got to put it back. And I think you just lost too much of everything that was happening. You're basically just starting over and hoping you're going to nail it after you open it up. As far as looking at it like he does and wrapping it back up, I'm just not a big fan of that. I'm relying solely on what I'm feeling through that foil to make my decision.
There you go.
Richard,
I think
I still have to probe it. I still have to feel it. I mean but it's just looking at it. I've had a few times where the feel was still a little bit tough to me, but you could tell that where I was going to be getting the slices from were drying out pretty fast at the top, and you kind of had to make a decision at that point of this is going to be really, really dried out, loose brisket, or do you want to try to gain a little bit moisture and seeing how you can cut it to try to make up for that. And I've been fooled on a couple of times where I've made that decision to go ahead and throw it in the Cambro and let it ride. And when I cut it, it was actually done, but for some reason to the feel of a probe, it just felt a little bit tough to me. But you just start taking, feel and visual, you start putting them together and trying to make those decisions, because I only cook one brisket, and so you better get it right.
That's right. One of the most mental times at a barbecue contest is if I pulled it off, opened it up, and decided it wasn't right. When it goes back on, I'm done for, because I think I've lost everything that that's been happening the whole time in there, and you're starting over and your numbers aren't accurate. But I don't know. That's the worst time ever when I open it up, decide, darn, it's not right. Let me put it back on and just hope for the best from there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Guys,
it's the one that will play with your mind for sure.
That's right.
This is awesome. All right. So now let's assume that the brisket is perfect. You're taking it off. You nailed it. Donnie, you're seeing what you want to see. Adam, you've seen what you want to see. Paul, you got what you need. Right? Brisket's done. It's off the smoker. What is the next step you're doing? Are you venting? How long of a rest time are we looking for? What's going on? Well, I just saw that comment, Blaine. That's hilarious. Anyway. What are we looking for? Or what's our ideal rest time? And I'm going to ask all three of this. What's your ideal rest time? Are you venting? What do you how are you handling that brisket once it's completely perfect?
All right, I'll go first. So I vent immediately for, depending on the temperature outside. If it's cold, we're not venting long, but I'll vent for 10, 15 minutes and I'll wrap it up tight. And most of the time when the weather's nice, we're going to leave it outside on the shelf. Just out. I don't like to use Cambros, number one, because things happen in there that sometimes you don't like. But if it's really cold outside, we're going into Cambro with it. But most of the time, it's going to be slid underneath the shelf in my trailer or stay on the counter outside to rest. And I usually pull my briskets. I put them on about 5:30 in the morning. This is not for KCBS, and they come off at noon. And then I'm putting them back on the smoker about 2:15 for a 3 o'clock turn in. So they get to rest about 2 hours and 15 minutes. 2 hours, 15 minutes rest.
Okay. So if you're cooking KCBS, what time are you putting that brisket on?
I'm putting it on at 4. It'll be done at 10:30, and it's gonna rest until I see it'll go back. When we turn in 1:30 turn in, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
1:30. So it'll go back on the smoker about 12:45 just to set the sauce before slicing. So that's 10:30 to 12. About 2 hours, 15 minutes rest.
Okay. Donnie?
Yeah, I'm probably 10, 15 minutes of venting it. Just until I can see the steam sort of going away from it. But I do go into Cambro, but I work the Cambro door harder than I do the smoker. I'm burping it all the time, just trying to keep it consistent in there.
So you like a 2 hour rest also?
He broke up. I didn't hear that question.
I said you like a 2 hour rest also?
Yeah, mine's it's gonna come off at 10:30.
Okay.
And
All right, good. Perfect. Paul?
I think for me, it depends a little bit, the venting portion of it. Sometimes you'll get that brisket and it's just right there. I mean, it is just right there at being where you want it. And I'll make a decision sometimes just to wrap it up and let it ride and just let the carryover temp go ahead and push it just that little bit more. But for those that come out and they feel just where I want them, I will vent them out. Kind of like what Donnie was saying, probably 5 or 10 minutes until I don't see steam as much. And then I'll put it in the Cambro with the pull knob pulled out so that it can release some of the hot air. And then I'll occasionally open it up throughout the contest to kind of not let it just sit in there and cook, so to speak.
And are you leaving the au jus in with it, or are you draining some of that out, pouring it somewhere else, or are you keeping it in there with it?
I leave mine inside the pan until I get ready to slice.
Same here.
Okay.
Same here.
All right, good. So it's soaking back then. All right, so y'all got that down. So any other questions on that, let me know. All right, so now that we've vented, we're done. It's turn-in time. It's 1 o'clock. Pork's turned in. What is your process look like between 1 and 1:30 in a KCBS timeline? Adam, I mean, if you can convert your IBCA or BCA to a KCBS force, that'd be great.
So about 45 minutes before turn-in, it goes back on the smoker to get a light layer of sauce, set for about 20 minutes. And during that time, I'm straining my grease from my au jus and putting it in a pot, warming that back up, cover it with foil, put it on the smoker, warm the au jus back up. And when it's slicing time, I'll slice it just directly across the grain, see how it pulls. Maybe I have to make an adjustment with my knife. Change the angle for a different texture. It's getting sliced. I'm putting it into my foil wrap. If it depends on how much soaking it needs, like I say, I'm a firm believer that the more you soak it, you're taking the natural fat that's in there and pushing it out. That's what I believe. I don't know if anybody will agree with me, but if you taste it and it's just where you want it, I don't soak them. But if they need to be soaked a while or dipped, I'll just pour that hot liquid around them, let them sit for a couple minutes, and we're going in the box with it.
Perfect. Donnie?
My brisket, I'll get it out of the Cambro just as the pork leaves, and I get there's another little secret. I get my pizza stone out of the smoker. Keep a pizza stone in there that's the same temperature as the smoker, and then I put a aluminum pan on my pizza stone. There you go. I put a thin aluminum pan, and I mix up my au jus mix that I want in that, and as I slice it, I can lay them in that pan, and I can pull them out of that hot enough that you can't hardly handle it with gloves and rubber gloves. But the pizza stone, I feel, is a big trick to keeping the brisket where I want it as far as temperature. So it sits there. I don't have a lot of time because I just started as the pork left. So it's not sitting in there very long. But as the slices go out and I pick them off of the board or which one that I want, then my turn end's actually sitting there until the last second. They're going to be moist, hot, and that's how I make a box up straight off a pizza stone.
Nice. Brilliant. All right, Paul. I expect something big out of you.
Wow.
Okay,
and going third on top of that. Wow. I think, I'm a lot like Adam there on that. I think, I'm always jealous of the Texas guys when you see pictures of this huge, beautiful bark sitting on top of their briskets and things. And but for us, mine always is pretty mushy coming out of that pan. It's been sitting in that pan and just gotten soft. So I'll put it back on the cooker and let it tack back up, which that little thin coat of sauce right there. Put it back on the cutting board, let it sit there just for a few minutes, let it kind of rest back up a little bit, and slice it. And my soak time is really depending on the brisket. So I can do the exact same process 100 times, but the taste of that meat's going to be a little bit different each time. So I kind of judge how long I want it to soak by how much flavor's in the meat already. So if it comes out, I think it's perfect. My biggest dilemma is how can I still keep it warm? Which is why I really like that pizza stone tip there, because I don't want to really soak it if it's where I want it. But a lot of times I do have to soak it for a little while just to try to add a little bit, little savoriness to the meat itself. And we'll put a little finish rub on the back of it. And
what finish rub was that?
A little finish rub.
Okay, man, I didn't hear what it was. I thought I heard.
That's something. The name of it. It's a little finish rub.
Enhancer.
It's right next to the enhancer.
It's right next to the enhancer.
That's right, at Atlanta barbecue store.
Exactly. We got it all.
That's right. Yeah. But so we push our brisket to the end. I think most people are doing that nowadays. It seems like that's become pretty common. The turn-in table seemed to be a ghost town until about 2 minutes before turn-in, and then all of a sudden it's just a mad rush to the table there.
I'm sorry. I'm reading some of the comments real quick. All right. Okay. So y'all got it all turned in. All right. One other question. Paul, you mentioned when you trim your brisket that you like to have the 7 to 9 inches by 11 inches is what you're going for when it goes on the smoker. Adam, you said you trim yours, and then Donnie, you say you just put as much in as you can. When you get to the point of turn-ins, are you docking the edges, or do you want a full brisket or without any cut edges? Does that make any sense at all?
I don't think docking is that big of a deal. I know some people have made a real big deal out of it, but to me, I try to put in a whole slice without docking. That's kind of my goal, and that's why I'm kind of at that 9-inch mark. And by the time it shrinks up a little bit, I can still fit it in a box. So that's kind of my limit. That's why I do it at 9 inches.
Okay.
But it's also repetition at the same time. The 11 inches comes from, I put it in a half pan when I wrap it. So if it gets much longer than that, it won't fit in the half pan, or it sits in there awkwardly. So that's where 11 inches come from. But when I cut mine, more times than not, I don't have to dock. And but I don't mind doing it. It's if it needs it, it's going to get docked.
Okay, good. Donnie, go ahead. You were going to say something. I rudely interrupted you as you were talking.
Well, as far as me and the size of the brisket, you know, the width is definitely trimmed down.
Okay.
Length is what I deal with more than width. You know, you got a purple end of the brisket, how it goes in. You know, you really, to me, I don't want any of that, but sometimes you have to have it. So depending on how far the marbling goes into that purple end of the brisket will determine the length that I'll try to take. But width is going to always be trimmed down for the box.
Okay. So you don't want to dock your edges if you don't have to.
Not if I don't have to, but you know, if I get a little crazy and they're crumbly, they got to go.
They got to
Yeah.
go. I hear you. Adam?
I only do it if I have to. Like they say, maybe one end will start falling off of every slice, or maybe the slice of brisket will be thick on one end and get smaller on the other. I'll just try to move it over to that prettier, thicker side and take what I can from that. If it looks real bad going from thick to thin from left to right, you know.
Gotcha.
Well, you know, it never fails. You always have that one side that's that loose meat that will end up cooking a little faster, and it'll want to crumble before the other side. So it is a challenge to cook both the ends and keep them together. So when you're trimming out that brisket, I guess for you, Brian, for a tip, if you have to decide left or right of that brisket and they look pretty equal, then try to get out that loose meat side, and you'll see it. It's a wider strand of muscle there. That you can start taking that out, and it'll help you on your end cook far as the meat holding together better.
And
So
sometimes
when
that part you're talking about actually grows wider during the cook.
Mm-hmm.
And then it makes you a real crazy shape that you got to deal with later.
It'll relax out. Yep.
So are you trying to trim that out before it even goes on the smoker, or y'all leaving that on?
I'm trying to cheat the other way from, you know, trying to cut as much as I can, because I know it's either going to be crumbly or it's going to grow funny on me while it's cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Hope y'all heard that. All right, guys, if you have any more questions, hurry up and get them in because we're going to have to wrap up. But I'm going to give each one of you one more question to ask each other. So, Paul, I'm going to start with you this time, and then as we wrap up.
Oh gosh. Let's see. You didn't tell us this at the beginning of the day that we're going to have to be asking each other questions.
Well, you know, y'all are the first one. Y'all are the first group, and it's going to be a lot of fun going forward.
I guess I would. This is going to be hard to explain for them, but occasionally you hear people talking about getting comment cards of too beefy. Everything, you know, your brisket's too beefy. What do you think that might cause that flavor to be too beefy?
The enhancer you were speaking of.
Improper use of the enhancer.
I don't know. I would have to guess that would be people soaking it too long, or just the strength of their beef in their injection. I don't. You know, that's where I guess it has to come from. Just the strength of your beefiness in your injection and the amount of time you're soaking it.
Yeah, I was thinking about Donnie a while ago, and he was talking about how his au jus is sometimes a little strong, and he has to cut it to get the flavor that he's wanting. And I wonder sometimes people are just relying on process instead of tasting their meat or tasting the liquid that they're using, because it never fails. You can put the same amount in a pan, but sometimes that brisket's going to give up more moisture than it does at other times, which is going to either dilute that au jus, or it's going to make it, if it doesn't give up much moisture, then it's going to concentrate it more. So if you're just dumping it in a pan, then soaking it over and over and over again with never really tasting it, I could see how your end product would fluctuate flavor-wise on that beef scale.
Donnie, what do you think?
Well, you know, I don't have a lot of that pot roast syndrome in my brisket because of my mop. It's got the flavor in it's got tang and some various things that are outstanding. That's why I say that I really couldn't. Now I can't use it as an au jus as far as soaking my brisket in it after it's sliced, because it's too powerful. But I believe that flavor, and I haven't changed it in years and years. it protects me a little bit from the pot roast taste, and that's what I always call it, is the pot roast taste. It overpowers the just beef taste, and adds just a
Right.
little something. All right, and again, that's an opinion, and I've tried to stick with it, but not too much of the time that I felt like. And of course, it's only my opinion of my piece of meat that I didn't feel like I had it tasting like pot roast.
Okay. Paul, did that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Donnie, you got another question for him?
Well, I don't know.
Or not even necessarily for them. You can ask any question that they can answer that could help our viewers.
Here's one for Adam and Old Hickory. Are you using just 2 racks and 1 cooker, or how many racks do you use in your Old Hickory? And how many?
My smoker has 3 racks in it, and I'm only using the top and the middle rack. So I cook ribs on the second shelf, brisket at the top, and I never need that much room for 3 of them because I don't cook pork or chicken in there during KCBS. So I just do brisket and ribs in it, and brisket on the top shelf, ribs on the second shelf.
Where do you cook pork and chicken on?
What's that?
Where do you cook pork and chicken on? Pork and chicken.
Backwoods.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Donnie. Keep going with that.
At Backwoods, that's when I won Team of the Year. That's what I cooked on with Backwoods, and I love them cookers, and I love water pan cookers. I just sort of got away from it, and there again, I don't know why. If something works, you shouldn't change it. But it's a technique, I think, to cook on water pan cookers, and I don't know. The Old Hickory to me is. I feel like I had to change things in ribs with the Old Hickory versus my.
No doubt.
But at the time, I felt like that the Backwoods was the rib cookingest things that there ever was, and they all work. You just have to figure them out, I guess. But That's funny you'd say that you cook with both, and but they both. But you cook ribs on your Old Hickory.
Yes. And that's simply the only reason I changed to that was because I was cooking ribs on the Backwoods. But when I bought the Old Hickory, I bought it only for brisket. But doing a BCA event, I'm only cooking half chickens when I cook on my Weber, and then I was doing brisket on the Old Hickory, and I wasn't going to light up the Backwoods just for ribs. I'm only going to have 3 cookers going. So I basically learned how to cook ribs on the Old Hickory just because I could light one smoker for that time, because I knew I wanted to cook brisket on the Old Hickory. So I just learned how to cook ribs on the Old Hickory to avoid me from having to light the Backwoods for ribs and the Weber for chicken and Old Hickory brisket.
I had a Backwoods party delivered to me in Cummins, Georgia. And one ribs with I used a party, G2 party to cook ribs on back in the day, and I paid for that smoker. They delivered it. I paid for it and won enough money at that cook-off to pay for that smoker, and it just kept on working good. So I mean, they all work great. This Old Hickory just seems to be clean and easy, and had them for a long time.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, Adam, your turn.
I don't really have a question for him, but I'm going to give you the people that's listening the reason why I trim my brisket to the same size every time. And it's not just for, it was something that y'all talked about earlier that reminded me why I don't just trim it for cook time. But if you're trying to get a consistency in your anjou and you have a large brisket and you season that whole thing up, and you have a small one contest and you go a big one and a small one, and you still pour in the same amount of liquid in your wrap, you're going to have so much more powerful of an anjou wrapping up a bigger brisket because it has so much more rub on it. So the reason to trim it the same size is cook time and strength of your anjou to be consistent. So keep that in mind. That's a lesson I learned years ago. one contest, I just said, let me just cook this big brisket. And my orange jus was so strong, I couldn't figure out why. I hadn't thought about it. So a good reason to trim it the same size is for timing and consistency in your orange jus.
Perfect. And I feel like I have let a couple people down, and guys, I will finish up with this in just a second. But a lot of people have asked what y'all are using to slice your brisket, and I don't want to say I've overlooked that, but the electric knife versus a slicing knife, and why do you use what you use?
The Cuisinart electric knife is what I use.
Okay.
Because most of the time it's too tender to use a regular knife.
Okay, there you go.
BCA and IBCA, yeah.
Definitely for IBCA and I don't know about BCA, but IBCA, it has to basically be overcooked, right? And our standards, because they're using a fork. Donnie, Paul.
I use a regular knife, and I think I shared with you the other night we talked. I try to keep my knives. I go through knives very fast because I use a diamond stone on them, but I try to keep them exactly the same, as close to the same consistency of sharpness with every category. And like I said, with ribs, I can feel that to see if that rib is too done or not done enough, just by the texture of how the knife goes through it. So I just use the same knife on everything. It does make it a little harder on those edges, but I keep a knife just razor sharp and always pull it to the brisket instead of away from the brisket, and trying to keep the edges.
Guys, that's very important. Anyway, Paul.
Yeah, I'm exactly like Donnie. So I sharpen them at the contest before we start doing the turn-in boxes, and I do use a regular knife.
Okay, there you go. Most important, be consistent, right? Adam, you're always using the electric knife. You two, you're always using a slicer. Do the same thing every time, so you know.
Awesome. I use a regular knife on ribs.
For that purpose, right? So you can feel what it goes through.
So I can feel. Yeah, I do not use electric knife on ribs.
Yes. All right. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to read these comments. My contacts are drying up on me. All right, Adam, what's your 40 time? Are you trying to figure out if you can play safety on the if you in a couple weeks we've got not Adam, we got Chris Schaefer, Blaine Hunter, and Fred Robles coming on, and they're coming up with an all football team, and they've got you at safety, and they want to know what your 40 time is.
Man, I got like an 80-inch. I have like an 80-inch reach. I can play safety. Definitely. Okay. I got a longer reach than Michael Phelps. I can play safety.
Oh, that's awesome. Paul, I believe they got you as a tight end. And this is too funny. If you go back and you read all the comments going back and forth when it talks about football stuff, that's where they're going with all that. They've got a team coming up. And as we
got Donnie as the coach.
Donnie's coach. I'm just the referee, just trying to make sure everything's going good. Guys, y'all have been awesome. Thank you so much for brisket. Next week on the show, we've got let's see, we got Boomerang Barbecue, we've got Clark Crew Barbecue coming on, and we've got Getting Basted coming on. So with those three coming on next week, we don't have the topic discussed yet, but we were going to get in with them and figure that out. The following week, we have Blaine Hunter, Chris Schaefer, and Fred Robles coming on. And then I have one more coming on after that, and we're going to get rocking and rolling with it. But please continue to tune in here to Chewin the BBQ Fat for some of the best discussions that you're ever going to have. It started this show talking about contests. Sign up for a contest, go cook contest, and I'm telling you, you want to save this episode. Go back and listen to what was said. There was a lot of information being shared tonight. Paul tried to hide a lot of information, but we got some of the stuff out of him that we could. Donnie was a superstar coming through, and Adam always with the knowledge that just brings it through for us. But guys, I hope you had a great night tonight listening to this incredible discussion with these three of the best pit masters you're going to find. I'm so proud and honored that y'all would be willing to come on and talk with us tonight on this show. Guys, thank every one of y'all for what you do for barbecue. Y'all are awesome. And I'm proud that y'all decided to come on the show tonight and talk barbecue with me. But anyway, if y'all have anything else that you want to say as a leaving thing, go for it.
Hey guys, it was great, Paul, and it's great to hang out with you here at this. I know we've cooked a lot together. Adam, I'd love to get to know you better. I've cooked around you a few times, but it was an honor talking with you tonight.
Same here, man. Good to see all of y'all, and I hope I get to see y'all soon. I don't know how it's going to go with all the COVID stuff, but I hope I get to see y'all at a contest for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I just can't wait to be the heckler on the other side come next week. To the
Thanks
other
for having
group.
us on, Brian, and I hope somebody learned something tonight from the show. And tell those guys I could play special teams too, man. I was the punter. Yeah.
I think they got Reagan with Ponderosa Barbecue as the kicker. But, we can have you as the punter.
That's right.
The barefoot kicker.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful night. If y'all will stay on just a second, I'll talk to you afterwards. Enjoyed it, everybody. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week on Chewin the BBQ Fat. Have a great night, and we will see you soon.